Joining me now is Pennsylvania Congressman Guy Reschenthaler. Congressman, good to see you. Your reaction and the impact on Pennsylvania.
Well, Maria, good to see you, and thanks for having me on. I think these tariffs are a good thing. I mean, if you come to my district in western Pennsylvania and you go through the Mon Valley, you can just see steel mill after steel mill that's shut down. It's because former administrations have allowed aluminum and steel to flood in from places like China and Russia, undercut us, and then as soon as our market goes down, these other countries raise the prices. So I think it's a good thing. Also, these tariffs are a tool to achieve policy objectives. For example, with Canada and Mexico threatening tariffs in order to get compliance on the border, I think is a good thing, and it's led to a really good result. Already at the border, we have illegal crossings down by almost 65%. You have the number of gotaways down over 90%. And a lot of that is because we're finally getting cooperation from Canada and Mexico.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's incredible. We spoke with Tom Homan the other day, the border czar. He said that border crossings are down 93%. Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance is calling on NATO to boost defense spending at the Munich Security Conference. He's set to meet with Ukraine's Zelensky later today. But the vice president told the Wall Street Journal that the U.S. is considering new sanctions on Moscow and potential military action to push Vladimir Putin into a peace deal with Ukraine. The president called on Russia and China, though, to cut defense spending and to meet for denuclearization talks, while adding Moscow should be added back to the G7. So where is this going? I mean, does the president want to cut defense spending or increase defense spending?
Well, I think at the end of the day, we have to give the administration, President Trump, Vice President Vance, the latitude to negotiate all of this. And when it comes to NATO, it needs to come to an end where we have NATO paying 2% or sometimes under 2% of their obligation, but a lot of that is going to military pensions, for example. We need to make sure they're spending 2% on actual war-fighting capabilities. And then when it comes to negotiating for the future of Ukraine, for example, I think that this president will draw red lines. He'll make assertions and statements, and he'll actually stand behind those. And that will really help President Putin and other adversaries around the world realize that when President Trump says something and he's in negotiations, he means what he says and he's capable of following through. That's unlike President Biden, unlike President Obama, who constantly drew red lines and then didn't do anything when dictators around the world just walked all over those red lines with impunity.
Yeah, and here's the Treasury Secretary with regard to sanctions on Russia with me just a few moments ago. Watch.
It will depend on how President Putin comes to the table. If we believe that taking the sanctions regime up to a maximum threshold level will help us achieve negotiating leverage. And as you know, no one understands negotiating leverage better than President Trump. So that will be his decision, and Treasury will implement it.
All of this, Congressman, after the deal to free Pennsylvania history teacher Marc Fogel from Russia. Wow, Congressman, thanks for all of your efforts. You worked to bring Fogel home. What do you make of President Trump's foreign policy and the fact that Mr. Fogel was able to get released in all of this?
Well, I'm absolutely ecstatic about the release of Marc Fogel. Marc Fogel, a history teacher from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, was given zero attention by the last administration. He languished in a Russian gulag for over 1,200 days. The Biden administration didn't even put him on what's called wrongfully detained status, making him eligible for a prisoner swap until after President Trump won the election, because they wanted to deprive President Trump of that win. But if you compare Marc Fogel's treatment with the treatment of others that were wrongfully detained in Russia, like Brittany Griner, similar circumstances, yet Brittany Griner was quickly put on wrongfully detained status and brought home incredibly quickly, while Marc Fogel was just in a gulag with getting very little attention from the administration. President Trump comes in and within 22 days of his administration was able to get the release of Marc Fogel. It just shows you that President Trump, just in this first 3 weeks of office, has done more than Joe Biden has done, not only in his 4 years as president, but probably his entire political career. That's how quickly and effective President Trump is moving.
Yeah, and of course, we're talking about an increase for money for the budget, an increase for money for defense. House Republicans advancing their budget plan out of committee last night. The one-track bill competing with the Senate's two-track approach to fund the president's agenda. And the House resolution provides a minimum of $1.5 trillion in spending cuts over 10 years and a maximum of $4.5 trillion in tax cuts. Where are you with this at this point, Congressman?
We're going to have to see what happens if we decide to run the Senate's budget or if we're running the budget that came out of Budget Committee earlier in the week. But I can tell you that as Chief Deputy Whip, number 2 to Tom Emmer, we're going to whip whatever product the Speaker and the President decide that we're going to go with, and we're going to get that done with 218 Republican votes. And I think no matter which course we choose, it's going to be really good for the American people and really supportive of President Trump's agenda.
Yeah, so can you commit to saying you're going to have a bill on the president's desk by April to sign?
I can't commit to that, but I will tell you that whatever product that is put in front of us, Tom Emmer and I will whip it, and we'll get the votes to make sure that it gets done.
All right, Congressman, we'll be watching your work. Thanks so much for being
Maria.
here this morning, sir. Guy Reschenthaler joining us this morning.